All right, welcome back, folks. Sorry, we had some technical difficulties here to get started. You can see I'm doing a little bit of cleanup that was left over in our little demo account. Hopefully this will go away sooner rather than later. It's not really a big deal, but yeah, it's just there. All right. Been one of those days today. Here's what we want to do. I thought we would restart our building with CloudFormation this week and build out a multi-region website. Okay, so multi-region website is the goal. And here's what I'm thinking. In the back end, we'll have, let me maybe draw it like this. We'll have EC2 instances, right? These are in auto-scaling groups. This is, let's just say, region 1 and region 2. And then in each of those regions, we'll have a shared file system. We're going to use EFS to do that. We'll set up replication between our what we'll call primary region, which is region 1, with region 2. And then, like we've done before, in front of our EC2 instances, we will put a load balancer. And it'll go like that. Actually, sorry, no, it'll be like this. We're talking multi-region here. So in region 1, if we just kind of draw the squiggly line here, right? To just separate the regions, we'll have identical infrastructure in both regions. So we'll have a load balancer here, which would be evenly distributing the workload in region A. And then we would have the same over here doing that. And then my thought is we have Route 53 that is then deciding which environment to send this to. So this is what we're going to build out, and then we'll have a machine image, right? That's the source for that. And then because machine images are also regional, we'll have a machine image in our second region that we can use for the source of the EC2 instances in our, in this case, region number 2. This is what I'm planning on doing. This will take us obviously a couple streams to get built out, but I thought today we could start with some foundational pieces. So if I think about what we need a VPC. Actually, even before that, we need some resources in IAM. We need KMS, we need VPC, and we need EFS, okay, as the starting point. And I think we could build all of this via CloudFormation. Once that kind of foundation is built, then we need an AMI, right? And I think what we'll do for this AMI is we'll just temporarily stand up an EC2 instance. We'll do that manually, okay? So we'll do this piece. At least at the beginning, we'll create this manually and use that EC2 instance to just kind of show it like this. This is the source for our AMI. Okay, this is our source for our AMI. And then at that point, we can finish the regional setup because we need this EC2 instance and an AMI because this AMI will lead to our auto-scaling group, and at that point we can use our auto-scaling group and our load balancer to build everything out. Once all of that's done, we can replicate all of this in the secondary region, and then speaking of replication, right, this needs to replicate to region 2. But we might come back and do that after the fact once we get all of the sort of bits and pieces all set up and running. Okay, so that's kind of a quick brain dump on how I think we'll tackle this. So that means today what I'd like to do is see how much of a dent in that first CloudFormation piece, set up IAM, set up KMS, set up VPC, and then set up EFS. And why do I think I need all of that first? Because in my machine image, I want to build in the functionality in that machine image to auto mount the EFS volume that we'll create in each of the regions. Okay, so that's kind of how I'm thinking of tackling it. And eventually we'll get to this. And before we need it, I will make sure that we have a domain we could use in our demo account here. And then we could decide on how we want to route that traffic, right? Whether it's a sort of, we could do something like, we've got options here, right? We could do a sort of primary route, right? If I kind of, oops, let's do it like this. So this is our primary route, and then we have a failover route. That might be one option. The other option is we could do something like, let's get rid of all this. Maybe, come on, Scribble. Isn't that funny? Come on, delete. There we go. Okay. We could do, there's all sorts of options with Route 53. We could set up latency routing. We could set up geolocation routing. We'll kind of decide on how we want to do that. Maybe even demo a couple different things here once we get to that point. But we've got a fair amount of work to do ahead of that. And I thought today, let's get started with some PyCharm setup. So all I've done at this point is just created the new repo for our project and pulled down the README to make sure that it all works. So let's set up the general structure that we do, right? So we always have a module structure or a modules directory. And in here, we'll do something like this. And I'm just going to put a bunch of placeholders. So we know we're going to have IAM. We're going to have KMS. And we're going to have some security group. Okay, so that's the only thing I can think of off the top of my head. Then we've got a compute. This is where we're going to have, I'll call it ASG. So we'll do everything through auto scaling groups. Give me 1 second here. I've lost some of my overlays here. And I'm not sure what I did with them. I usually have a little window that shows me if there's any questions or anything like that. I don't know where it is. Oh, okay, I found it. Okay, perfect. So we're good there. So we've got our auto scaling group, and then we'll do something like this. We'll say storage. And I know in the diagram, I didn't show this, but we'll probably have some S3 storage of some sort, maybe just for logging or whatever. And then we've got EFS. And looking at this diagram, oh, load balancing. So obviously we've got our networking piece. And in here, we have the VPC itself. We'll put flow logs on it. So we'll just call it flow logs. And oops, what did I do there? Delete that. We'll also have load balancing here. Let's call it ALB. You know, I was thinking of something else in the security section. We'll get some sort of certificate we can use on the load balancer. So that's that piece. Just looking to get my diagram again. That's probably pretty good. And what I'm going to do is we're going to borrow heavily from our Orbit build templates here so that we don't have to build all of this from scratch. So let me get logged in there, and then we'll just start a little bit of cutting and pasting for some of these kind of foundational pieces. Like I'm thinking the VPC. I think we've got an EFS template. We've got some of these things built out. So the first thing that we'll start with here is what I'd like to do is create in each of the environments. This is really simple, but it's just a let's call it like this. We'll say deploy VPC resources for multi-region Twitch demo. Okay, and this is just a Do I care about the metadata? Yeah, let's leave metadata for now. This is just the standard 2AZ deployment that we use. So 2 public subnets, 2 private subnets, 2 protected subnets. Is it public or not? And we're going to use this to deploy across both our primary and secondary region. So that's an easy one. What else can we borrow here to help us with this? Flow logs. Let's grab that. And this will be the first thing that we have to rework a little bit, because in our Orbit build solution, what we do is we make all these templates completely standalone. So you can see in here we're mixing IAM resources with log groups, with flow logs, which we're going to change up a little bit, but this will give us a good starting point. There's that. That'll do for that. And then on the IAM side, see if I can just find this quickly. So on the security piece, do I have anything that would get us at least started here a bit? I'm thinking at a bare minimum we need, yeah, this will do. And we'll slice this up a little bit too. If I pull this over and dump it in here, this is just some generic IAM roles, and you'll notice here it's essentially a role that we can use on our EC2 instances that give us managed core and access to CloudWatch logs, and then we'll doctor this a little bit. Okay. So that gives us, I think, enough to at least sort of start building this out. The other thing that we normally do is we'll create here, we'll just call this includes, and we're going to create 2 files. We'll call it primary YAML, and then this will deploy into our primary region, and then once we get there, we'll use the same set of templates to deploy into our secondary region. So that's kind of our goal. Let's doctor up these. So I'm going to basically make all the descriptions the same. So we'll go to IAM, and we'll just say this. So that's fine. We don't have to worry about metadata for what we're doing. Parameters, that's all okay. And then, as I mentioned, we've got this sort of mixed a couple different things. So we're going to take the policy and the role doc, I'm going to take it out of here, and we're going to move it over to IAM. I'll just dump this here. Okay, so so that's this. This is the permissions that we need, and this is allowing the flow log service to assume the role that would give it the permissions to write to CloudWatch logs. So that's fine. And then we need down here, we need to now export. If we go back to flow logs, what does it ask for here? Oh, we need KMS. Here it's looking for, oh, it's looking for the ARN for flow logs. Okay, so we can just do this. We'll go here. Right, so that, and then we'll say export, and we'll give it a name. And we'll just do flow logs ARN. And these are 2 generic. So what we're going to do is we're going to call this, we'll just short form this. We'll call it EC2. Maybe we'll just do instance profile. I know that's not shortening, is it? ARN. Oh, sorry, that's the name. And then we'll take this and just dump it here like that. Okay, perfect. And then the other couple things that we're going to need here is our deploy script. So we'll use GitLab to do that. So there's our GitLab YAML file. And I'm going to borrow from one of our previous projects to get this at least started for us. Let me find the one that we did a couple weeks ago. This will give us the starting point, right? so there we go. In this case, our application, I'm just going to call it, we'll call it Mr. Website. Okay, multi-region website. And this, what did I call it? I don't know what I called the project. I called it multi-region website. So we'll do the same. We'll just call this MR website. And for now, we're going to strip all of this out, and we'll just validate the IAM document and the VPC document. And then this will be includes, we called it primary, like that. Okay. All right. And even at this point, we don't have anything here. So why don't we just make sure that at least we can validate these scripts. So let's commit all this. And this way it'll give us an opportunity to check how many typos I've had. Let me go back to the project. Okay, so this is our project. And what? Oh, you know what I did? Hold on. Did it pick up? Yeah. Oh, look, I spelled this wrong. Duh. Should be dash CI. Okay. Yeah, GitLab dash CI. Okay, we'll try this again. There we go. Okay. So this is the first pipeline. Won't actually do anything, but it'll at least run a quick validation, just the CloudFormation validation, syntax checker, basically, against, in our case, the VPC template and the IAM template. So that's a good start, right? We've got this going now at this point. Okay, so those are our first two things. Let's clean some of these out of here. Oh, we're going to need that KMS one. We'll need that right away for the VPC flow logs. So let's get this set up, and we'll actually deploy these. And we just said slash modules. No, sorry. What did I think I just called it includes, right? Primary? I already forget. Yeah, includes primary. And then I'll do the same thing that we did a couple weeks back. Find the little VPC endpoint example. We can just borrow this. Yeah, I think this will do. So there, here, okay, and we'll just call this primary VPC deploy, but I'm going to pass in a few variables here, and let's call this primary MR VPC, right? Multi-region VPC is public in this case. We do want to make this public. I know in theory what we really should do is consider centralizing all the ingress and egress into a network account and having everything flow through that. But for now, what we're going to do is we're going to create VPCs in each of the regions and have the load balancer handling that for us for each of the regions rather than centralizing it all. Okay, so we'll do it that way. I think this will be okay. Project. What we need is, again, I always forget how this is set up. I want to say it's dot primary variables and then primary variables like this, and we'll say region. In this case, I think what we'll do is we'll use US East 1 as our primary region, and then we'll select another region, North American region of some sort, but we'll use a different region for our secondary region. So we'll set that up, which means we're going to do something like this, just to make sure we're overriding what's ever set up in our deploy profile. What else do I need here? So we're going to deploy this all into the same account, just as a demo. But like if you were deploying this in real life, you might have an AWS account for your primary application and another AWS account for your secondary application. In that case, you would need, in our case, we're using GitLab, so you'd need roles in each of those accounts, and then you would need to set it up so that you could assume the appropriate role. For us, we've already got the role defined here. This is our profile setup. So GitLab assumes the CO demo role, and we'll deploy this all in one account. But think about it in a different situation where you're running multiple accounts, you'd need different profiles to get to those accounts. So I don't think we need anything there. And then the question is, how do we include these? I always forget. It's a weird little format, something like this. I'm gonna have to look it up. That looks sort of right, but not really. Bear with me one sec. I'll just jump into another project here quickly. We've done this before in one of the demo projects. I just can't remember which one we would have done it in. See if I can find an example. There's just something about that format that I have there that doesn't feel quite right. Why don't we do... Give me a second. I'm just going to log into another account. Well, we could try it like this. This is their demo. Let's try it and see, and if it doesn't work, I can't find a good example right now. If it doesn't work, what we'll do is we'll just come back to, well, we'll go to Google and figure it out. All right, so let's go back to our PyCharm, which you see. Okay, and let's deploy this primary variables, and then jeez, we do this all the time. You'd think by now I'd remember it. Back over here. Trigger keyword. What? Jobs includes config. Jobs includes config should implement a script. Oh, what did I forget? Primary stage variables. Stack name. There's our script. We've got the deploy phase, that's this, or the deploy stage. We pull that in. Let's see, does this give us anything different? Simulated get push event for default branch rules only, except in needs have been evaluated. Job Jobs includes config should implement a script or a trigger keyword. I think this is just a weird little syntax error that I've messed up in here somewhere. You know what? Let me grab our example from one of our demo scripts. Let's just cut and paste it and we can have a look at it and see what we've done wrong. Doesn't even matter what it is. So we'll just grab this. So here's my sample. Variables. Oh, look what I did. So this isn't right. So that should be like that. So it's pulling from there. And then dot. That looks good. None of this makes sense because we don't care about this for now. Let's try this again. I wonder if it was just that variable. Nope. I always find that the very first deploy is always the hardest. You get these weird little errors that are tough to troubleshoot. All right, what are we doing wrong? Sometimes when you cut and paste, you end up with like just a bad tab or something like that, but this looks good. It would complain if we didn't have the right path information, so that's fine. Okay, so we've got stage, we've got variables, we've got script. We set our region here because we want to override whatever in the profile. Primary variables, yeah, that's fine. We pull those in. And then I'm pretty sure the issue is here because if we pull this out, and let's just run it again. Yeah, we use the same commit message. If we run that and then go back over here, I think it'll run clean here. Yeah, so this is okay. So there's no syntax errors in the GitLab CI. It's when we're running the include. So let's put this back. I'm just going to check something here. This. I'm checking against a script I was running today that I know worked. So let's just make one change at a time until we hunt this down. So we'll run this again. Oh, there we go. So you see what I did wrong? It's always the easy stuff. So I put this as includes instead of include. And now if we go back to Firefox, there's our template that ran. Okay. So that means if we go over to CloudFormation, this is what I was trying to clean up before. This is our primary multi-region VPC. And I'm not going to deploy it yet, but that looks good. At least we've made it this far. Let's see if we can get rid of the rest of this. I ran a class last week and I left a database running and it wouldn't let me delete this. So let's go cancel VPC. Here's my little class VPC. I'll just delete it even manually if it'll let me. There we go. Just to clean it up. Okay. That can go away. And now this, we could just rerun our delete operation. I know it's a little weird the way I did it, but it had stuff hung up in there, and I could not get it to go away, so I had to do some manual stuff. I don't know what I did. So that's that. You know what? Let's do this just to, again, test this out. We're going to go here, and we're going to change this to deploy primary. Okay, so this is our new stage, and then we'll say deploy secondary. And we are going to, we'll just copy this and call it secondary. And the thing we have to do is go deploy, I'm in secondary. Okay, so deploy secondary. And what region do we want to use? We will use, why don't we use US West 2 as our secondary region for this? So I'm just going to change it up here, West 2. That's Oregon. And then we'll call this secondary. The rest of it, oh, you know what we're going to have to do here? We don't want, even though we're not connecting these things together, we don't want the CIDR blocks to overlap. Because then if we ever need it in the future to connect these VPCs together for whatever reason, we can't route the traffic between them. Okay, so what we're going to do is in the secondary region, if we pull up networking VPC, we pass in all of the CIDR blocks we're going to use. So let's just mimic what we've got here. So these are 1098 networks. We're just going to change all of this to 1099. So why don't we go like this? We'll pass all of these in like this, okay? And even though we're not using the protected subnets, we'll obviously have to pass those as well. Private subnet like that. And then we'll say protected subnets. All right, and then we have to pass all of this down here to override the other settings. So we're just going to go okay, that's fine. I guess we could just do this, right? Go. Oops. And this will override all of that. Now we just need to set the variables. So we're going to make this 109900/16. And what I think we'll do is we'll just cut and paste all of these first. So this is our public subnet. Public subnet 1. Private subnet. Like that. And then our 2 protected subnets. Grab those from here. And then, in theory, that should do the trick. Okay. So we override the region. We should change this to secondary. Right, and we want to pull those in like that. So we override the region, and then in here we pass in same sort of thing, stack name, and then in this case we need to change all of the subnets, the CIDR blocks, so nothing overlaps, and it's still public, and we've put those down here. Did we include here? like that. And then let's push that up. This will be a good little quick check to see if this, oops, does what we want. Oh, look it. I did something wrong there. What did I do wrong? Includes primary, includes secondary. Oh, you know what I did? Primary. The job name also needs to change. Yeah, that's the issue. Okay. And we got a failure. What did I do wrong? Chosen stage does not exist. Oh. So we have deploy secondary. And yeah, see, I named this, so that's now deploy primary. Bear with me a second here. Okay, that looks good, right? That means if we jump back over here and go to Oregon, there's our secondary VPC. Perfect. Progress. All right, so before we get too much further though, what we do need, let's close these down for now, is we need that IAM, those IAM resources deployed. So under security IAM, all we had in here was our flow log role and policy, and then the EC2 profile that we'll use, because this will allow us to use SSM later on, just to, if we needed it for testing or anything like that, troubleshooting. So let's get this deployed. And since this is a global service and we're only using a single AWS account, we can deploy this in one of the two regions. I think what we'll do is we'll plunk it in here. And I'm just going to do this. So we'll go like this. Primary IAM. That isn't valid. Security IAM. Owner email environment. Project is there. This can go away. And we do need, because this is IAM, we need to put in a capabilities statement. Let's just check here. Do we name any of these things? We don't. Okay, so we should be able to just get away with capability IAM. Deploy primary, US East 1. Let's add that. That's good. Perfect. So now if we go back over here, we're back in US East 1. There's our IAM resources. We look at the change set. the role, the policy for flow logs. There's our role for our EC2, and then that's our instance profile, so we can associate that role to EC2 instance after. So let's see if this works. Didn't fail immediately, so that's good. While we're waiting for this to finish, we can go back here. And really the next thing that we should get set up here is KMS, because we want everything to be encrypted. So we can we'll do the same thing. We'll say KMS. Now this does need to go in both regions because KMS is a regional service. So we'll make sure it works in one region first, and then we'll copy it. And the capabilities IAM can go away. And what's in this KMS profile? Or template? We didn't copy anything over. So let's go copy something. And again, I'm going to grab this from our templates here. And we can add to this as we go. So this is a standard KMS template we use that has support for flow logs. You'll see right here, here's the key. And I'm going to change this, and we're just going to say CMK used for the MR website Twitch demo. Right. And there is right here. This gives it access to flow logs. Or, sorry, to the log group, which flow logs will be writing to. So I think this should work fine for what we need. That means we can go like this. This is fine, this is fine. Oh, what else does it need? Does it need anything? Environment owner, and then pending delete. And we set it very low because it's just demos. Quite often you'd want this higher, obviously, like, I think you can go as high as 30 days on this. But in our little demo environments and stuff, that's easy. So we'll leave it as that. And then let's take this and we'll go to our secondary deploy script and do the same thing and just rename some stuff. Primary. Oh, sorry. Secondary. Which goes here, here. The rest of this can all stay the same. Okay, so primary, KMS. Oh, I didn't change the stage name. See that? Because it's still in the deploy primary stage. Doesn't really matter, I guess, but just to kind of keep it a little relatively organized, let's go back over here. And yeah, see this? I can just say deploy secondary. And that'll just kind of keep it in the right stage. We'll just let this run for now, make sure that it all works. Looks pretty good. Then the next time we deploy, we'll move this from here into the secondary stage. Okay, that's good. Let's go CloudFormation. We're in Northern Virginia. IAM deployed. Let's see if KMS deploys. And KMS takes a while to deploy. So we're going to do that. And we'll just watch it for a second. As long as it doesn't error immediately, then we're probably pretty good. Might take it 10 minutes to deploy. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Didn't error out immediately. And I think what we'll do is we'll jump over to Oregon as well. And here's our KMS stack here. And let's execute this one as well. So now we've got a KMS key, a customer managed key for encryption in our primary region and our secondary region. And that's looking pretty good too. Perfect. All right, so what's next? We've got, let's switch back here. We've got our IAM resources, which are global, KMS, and VPC. We haven't deployed the VPC yet, but I think what we could do is set up the VPC flow logs now, because in theory, we're going to have our KMS stack deployed, which has the CMK that we need to refer to in flow logs. And in IAM, we've already got the flow log role set up that we also need to use in the flow log stack. So we're going to do this. And we'll say, we'll call it flow logs, primary flow logs. This is not required. And we are going to go here and say needs job, this one. Okay. And this is just flow logs. And we are going to have to do some parameter work here. We'll get rid of is public. Let's go have a look at the flow log template. So what we need here, this is all the metadata, which we don't care about for what we're doing. There's our retention period. We need the VPC stack, and we need the KMS stack. I'm going to reorganize this a little bit. So what we're going to do is we're going to say tag parameters, there we go. And we'll say stack parameters. There. Okay. Here's our log group. So you can see it's going to refer here to the ARN in our KMS stack. Here's our log group name, our retention, and then the flow log. And the flow log here, I don't know if this is required, but I'm just going to do this. This depends on log group 0. We want the log group there before we try to deploy flow logs. A lot of times it's smart enough to know this, but I just kind of do this. And we need to pass in now stack information. So if we go back here, we can go here and say VPC stack, and we can just grab these names, right? KMS stack is, where did that go? Here. And drop that there. Perfect. And this is also regional. So we're going to go over here. And now we just have to change this. The rest of it should work fine. Okay, let's see what it does. Okay, so there's our flow. What did we move? We moved KMS, right? So now KMS is in the secondary stage. All this is working its magic. Let's go back to Northern Virginia. So KMS is deployed. That's good. Let's deploy our VPC, because we're going to need this before we can do flow logs anyways. So let's deploy that. And I guess what does Oregon look like? We should have done, yeah, it looks basically the same. So we can deploy this VPC as well. Get those two VPCs set up. And do we have an error in our pipeline? Nope, still running, okay. Oh, we did have an error. What happened? Oh, I put these in the variable section, but I didn't put them in the parameter overrides. That would help. So if we go here, go primary, see what I did down here? I have to say VPC stack equals, and what was the other one? KMS stack equals. Otherwise, we're passing in empty values for the parameters because there's no default set for these. And then I have to do the same over here. Let's try that again. While we're waiting, oh. While we're waiting, if we go back to CloudFormation, and I'm in the wrong region. This isn't our, we're using US East 1. Okay, so our VPC is still deploying, and I would assume over here in Oregon it would be the same. Yeah, still deploying. Okay. Let's see how our pipeline's doing. Primary. Oh, yeah, because the stack is in a in progress state, and when we try, what we're doing here is we're generating change sets, so it can't generate a change set on a stack that is in progress. So we'll have to wait for the create in progress to get to create complete. Okay, so that's what's going on there. That's why we got the error. And then we can test our flow log again. All right, so while we're waiting for that, what else is in our work list for today? IAM, KMS, VPC, EFS. All right, so let's, again, I think I have in our Orbit build environment a template that will get us most of the way there for what we're trying to do. Just give me a sec. Let's grab this. This one we might make some changes to, but let's see what it looks like, and we can go from there. So if we go here, where did I put this? Under storage. Here's EFS. We'll dump it here. All right, so metadata again, and then just to keep it consistent, we're going to grab this description, and we'll do the same thing up here, right? We'll just say EFS. Okay, we'll come back to parameters in a second. Conditions we won't worry about for now. We'll have to open this up because there's a lot of parameters that are getting passed in here. File system policies, file system tags. There's our KMS ID. See, in this case, in Orbit build, again, trying to make it as generic as possible. In the standalone templates, what we do is we assume that you've deployed the KMS template already, and then you refer to it by using the ref command here. You would put in the KMS ID. When we're building out a solution like this, though, we can refer to those other templates, right? We use the imports and export values, so we're going to do the same thing here. Okay, so I have to change that. So why don't, for now, what we'll do is we'll do this. Okay. We are not going to use provision throughput, and we're not going to modify the throughput mode. We are going to leave these as the default. So we'll do that, and that means up here, the condition can go away. And then in parameters, we're gonna change a bunch of this. So you can see how we're pulling all these in rather than using imports and exports. So we'll get rid of this. This can go away. Backup is enabled by default. We don't need performance mode. Yeah, we might leave lifecycle policy. So let's do a little more reorganing here. So we're going to do this. We're going to say tag, what did we call this before? Tag parameters. Okay, so these are the tags. And then down here, we're going to say stack parameters. And what we're going to need here is we're going to need a VPC stack reference. We're going to need the KMS stack reference. And we're actually going to need the security group stack reference as well, because we, when we create this file system, we associate it to a VPC. We associate it to a VPC. Therefore, we need the use of a security group. So we're going to have to maybe make some other changes here. File system policies, tags, KMS IDs. There's our two mount targets, our output. So before we actually can do this, we need to create our security groups, because we're going to refer to that security group in the other stack. Okay. So let's see. Let's actually go back here first. So our VPC is deployed in the primary region, and the VPC is deployed in the secondary region. So let's rerun the pipeline here and just make sure that the flow log piece gets deployed. And speaking of security groups, when you create your security group, or when you create your VPC, sorry, you get a default security group. So if we go over here, resources, and we find the VPC, if we go here, this takes us over to the VPC console. Under security groups, there's our default security group. We normally do this through an automated tool, but what we want to do is we're going to go in here and we're going to delete the inbound rules and the outbound rules on our default security group. It's kind of AWS security best practice now, and this will just keep, in our case, it'll keep Security Hub from flagging this as not correct. Now in this case, in Oregon, we actually have the default VPC in here as well. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to go here and say delete. So this is the security group that came with the default VPC. Okay, and we'll say delete. And then here's the security group that we created. So we'll do the same thing. We'll edit this, delete the outbound rule, and delete the inbound rule. All right, perfect. So that fixes that up. Let's see what happens here. Failed again. Why did this fail? Undefined resource VPC flow log. This is probably just because we were cutting and pasting some stuff. Let's go back and have a look. Flow log. So there's the log group. Oh yeah, see this here? This used to be in this template. It's not here anymore. So we need another stack reference. So we can just copy this and put it here. And in this case, we want that to come from our IAM stack, which we'll have to add up here. Okay. And then we just need the name of it. I can't remember what we assigned as the export value right here, flow logs ARN. So if we take that, we go like this. Okay, let's try that. Oh, that won't work still. Let's do it like this. Fix added IAM stack reference. But we won't push that, we'll just commit it. We have to make one other change. We've got to go into, let's pull these to the front of our list here. Okay, so we've got to go in here and we've got to include the IAM stack value, which is just going to be that. And then we have to include it in our parameter overrides to make sure we pass it along. And we have to do the same thing here. In the secondary one, go here. Right, so that hopefully fixes it. Okay. We'll give that a bit of time to run, and then in the meantime we need to set up our security groups, and we might as well set them all up. Let's get rid of some of these. We need that. Okay, let's see, I probably have a template again that we can borrow from so we don't have to build it all from scratch. And I'm thinking a couple weeks ago we did the VPC endpoints. That should have security groups in it, so it'll give us the starting point for this, which we will take and dump here. Okay. The one thing I want to do is just keep these names all standard. We'll do this. Not names, sorry. Our descriptions. Okay, so here are our parameters. We'll come back to those in a second. We've got an EC2 security group. we're gonna need this, but we're not gonna call it the EC2 security group, so we'll get rid of that. We might put some interface endpoints in here, so we'll leave this one. No harm in that. We need. Okay, if we think about, let's go back to the diagram here for a second. All right, so if we go back over here, so what we need, if we draw on this diagram, we'll make it purple. We need a security group, security group, security group, and again, security groups are tied to specific AZ or specific VPCs. So that means we need the corresponding ones on the other side. So we need a security group for our load balancers. We need a security group for our web servers, which are our EC2 instances. And then we need a security group for our file system, our EFS file system. Okay, so we need 3 security groups, but we're going to create the extra one. We're going to create just the interface endpoint security group if we wanted to add some things later on. I don't really think we'll worry about interface security groups or interface endpoints for this demo, but we got them. So what we're going to do is we're going to build all of these out now, and I'm going to copy all of this because they're going to be very similar. So we're going to say SG for public, whoops, what happened there? There we go. Public facing ALB and Twitch demo. The CIDR IP in this case, we're going to allow this from anywhere, right? This is public facing. Can't type anymore. Public internet. Okay. I guess I could have just done this, right? I don't know why I was typing that there. That. And in this case, we're going to allow inbound traffic on port 80 and port 443. Okay, so we'll do this. And what we'll do is when we set the load balancer up later on, we'll set it up so that if a client does make a connection to our load balancer on port 80, we'll redirect them to 443. So we'll allow both of those in. So that's all we need for the load balancer. The web servers are behind those load balancers. We'll copy all of this. We'll do this. And we're going to say SG for web servers in Twitch demo. How do we do it up here? Yeah, okay. And in this case, we're going to change this. I can't remember what the name is. It's we're going to do what's called security group chaining here. So we're going to say allow inbound traffic on a particular port from the load balancer security group, and it's something like source security group ID or something like that. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to say this depends on the ALB security group because we need to refer to that. And this, it will be allow inbound traffic or allowed inbound access from the public ALB. And for the demo, we're going to allow traffic from the load balancer to the web server to be unencrypted. Okay. Now, in real life, you probably want to encrypt that. You could have a self-signed cert on your web server and then make sure that what'll happen is the public traffic, SSL traffic, is dealt with on the load balancer itself. And then the load balancer will re-encrypt and send it to your, in our case, our web servers in this example. So then you could use your own SSL cert and set that up. But for today, we'll just leave it as port 80. This is what we need to change though. So let's go over here. We'll look the security group ingress up. And what we need, if we just go YAML, we need this right here, source security group ID. That's what we're after. So that's an easy one to change. We can go back over here and change this. And we should be able to just say ref ALB SG. So now this is saying allow inbound traffic from any resource in this security group on port 80. So this is that example of chaining. Okay. And then we're going to do sort of the same thing. We're going to do it like this. Okay. So this will be our EFS security group, SG for EFS in the Twitch demo. And in this case, we're going to chain it to the web servers. So allow inbound access from the web server fleet. And in this case, EFS is NFS, and it requires a single port, 2049. Okay. So on our load balancers, you can come from anywhere, public access. You can only access the web servers if that traffic is originating from the load balancers on port 80. You can only access our EFS file system if the traffic originates from any of the web servers on port 2049. Okay. That's everything we need here, and then we need to do some exporting. So I'm going to say ALB-SG ID. This is ALB-SG. You're going to see how this goes, ALB ID. And then we're just going to copy these. So this will be web server. What did we call it? Just WebSG? So let's shorten these then. We'll just call it WebSG. WebSG. Web. And then this is EFS. EFS. EFS, right? So that should be everything there. And then we got to deploy this. Oh, look, we didn't add our flow log validation in here. So let's do that. Networking, flow logs. And then here we're going to say security SG. And you'll notice we forgot another one too, didn't we? Security KMS. Okay. So that's everything there. So we're doing validation. And then in here, we can do, we'll just copy this again. Primary SG. SG, we don't need any of these. We do need a VPC stack because the security groups are bound to a VPC. And then we should be able to get away with that. Let's just check our SG again. So up here in the parameters, and let's do some reorganization so it sort of looks like the other ones. So these are our what we call our stack parameters, right? And these are our tag parameters. Okay. And see here, this is where how we're binding the security group to a particular VPC. So that should all be good. Let's get rid of this blank line. And then do this and copy that into our other deploy. This is what always gets me about infrastructure as code, right? It's just once we kind of get this set up, and if you've got your templates, if you've got your templates built in a way that we're using parameters and things like that, we can make these templates usable across multiple AWS accounts in multiple regions. And you can see how fast we're deploying this. And then in combination with our Orbit build service, where all of these templates are built already, so you can use them as is or slightly modify them depending on what it is you're trying to accomplish. You can see again how quickly we're able to do this because we're not having to write everything from scratch, which is always a bonus. So we're going to go here. I know I made a lot of changes, so we're just going to say added SG. What else did we change here? I already forget. Yeah, okay, so all we did was SG, and then, yeah, that's fine. SGs for services, we'll just call that. Commit that. Let's go back over to our multi-region website. Go to our pipeline. There's our flow logs. There's our security group. So the first thing is we can get the flow logs set up, and we can deploy our security groups as well. I don't think I added a need statement in the security group, but we could, right? We could say the primary SG deploy job requires the primary VPC deploy job. Same thing in the secondary. We'll maybe set that up just because we can. So let's go back over here. we're in Northern Virginia. Refresh. Here's flow logs. So let's get that going. Just because we've had that one waiting, and we can run these in parallel. So we can go to the change set for SG, load balancer, EFS, web, and then the interface endpoints, which we probably won't use, but we've got the security group now. Perfect. So we'll just give both. Oh, look, our flow logs failed. Ah, what's this one doing? Let's give this a second. Okay, that didn't fail immediately. That's good. Let's figure out what we did wrong here. Primary invalid format. Okay, let's check what we did there. Deliver log permission ARN. All right. Back here. This is probably, again, just because we were cutting and pasting some of these things, and the way we're using it is a little different. So it didn't like this. Deliver logs permission ARN. Well, you know what we could do? Let's check to make sure this export is actually set up in the IAM stack properly, the way we would expect, with this value. So if we jump back over to Firefox, we go to IAM, and we go to outputs. Flow logs ARN. Oh, look, that's not an ARN. That's the name. Yeah, so that's why it's not working. We're passing in a name, and it's expecting on the other side the Amazon resource name, the unique identifier. If we go back over here, this is an easy one to fix. What we need to do is go to the IAM stack, and here we should have made this a get attribute .arn. Okay, so get the ARN attribute and export that as this value. Now, before we can deploy this, we have to go back over here, and we have to delete this, because again, if this will be basically saying, hey, this stack is in progress, and it won't let us do anything. So we'll give that a second to fix up. And then while we're waiting, we can go over to Oregon, and we won't deploy this because it will fail, but we can deploy our security groups because they seem to work. Let's see. Okay, so that's gone. Go back over to PyCharm. Go here and say fix modified flow logs output to provide ARN. Okay. And we'll go back to here. Watch our pipeline again. Now, before we redeploy our flow log stack, we got to do the change set on IAM, because otherwise, if we don't do that, it still has the name as the ARN output instead of the ARN. So let's go back over here. We're in our primary region, so we should have our IAM stack here. And if we look at the change set, it will look blank because we're not actually changing any resources, but we're modifying an output. Okay, so we'll just say execute. We know that we actually have a change there, and this should go really quickly. Okay, perfect. And then if we go to outputs, there's our key. Now we have an ARN. Bang. So now if I go over to flow logs and say execute, let's give this a second to make sure it doesn't fail again. And if it doesn't fail, then what we can do, there we go. Perfect. I'm pretty confident now. So we can jump over to Oregon. And remember, again, because we're in the same region, I don't need to worry about, there's no IAM resources here because IAM is global. This is using the same output values, and I can execute this. And now we have, again, assuming we did everything correctly. Oh, look at that. What happened there? No. Oh, exports are also regional. Ooh, this is an interesting one. how are we going to do this? So it's not the fact that like if I'm in Oregon, right? If we go to IAM, I didn't think about this. If we go to IAM, it's global, right? There's nothing here. If we go to roles, I don't even remember what we called it now, MR dash. There we go. There's our generic role. There's our flow log role. Okay. Yeah, we have a bit of a challenge on this one. How do we want to handle this? So it's the resource, excuse me, the resource itself is global. But when you create exports in IAM, those exports are regional. So CloudFormation in Oregon can't see the export values that are in Northern Virginia, and we're trying to essentially pull in the ARN from, or pull in an ARN that from an output value that doesn't exist in this region. How could we fix this? Okay, well, let's do this. Let's go back over here. Actually, I saw also leftovers in here, so let's do this. What is this, actually? Let me have a look at this. Oh, I remember what this is. Delete. And let's go like this. I still need my delete scripts for my lab environments. Okay, so if we go back over to CloudFormation. So we ran into our first little hiccup here. I think I have a way to solve this. So our flow logs worked over here. What we're going to do though is we're going to delete it. Okay. So we're going to delete that stack, and then we're going to go back to Oregon, and we're going to delete that because this will cause a failure, right, later on. So we're going to delete both of those stacks. And then I think what we'll do, the challenge that we have here is, like, I can't even easily refer to, so if I go to roles and go to MR again, if we search for that, what we're doing is we're letting CloudFormation name the role. So primary MRM, MR, IAM is the stack name, and then flow log roles is the logical name from our stack. And then what CloudFormation's doing is just appending a random string of characters to the end of that to make it unique. Normally, this is the way that we do these things, and it works perfectly fine. But in this case, this is a problem because now I don't know what this is going to be. So how do I refer to it? I can't. So I'm thinking what we'll do here is, I know we could do some custom resources and stuff like that. I don't want to do that. I just think that's overly complicated. So we're going to do something like this. We're going to go back to IAM. And in this role here, we are going to, we're going to hard code a name here. Okay. So let's go back to Firefox. Let's go over here, look this up. And I think it's just name. Description, role name. Okay. We're going to go back over here. And we'll go like this. Role name is, we're going to do this. MR website flow log role. All right. That's what we're after. All right. Will this work? I think this will work. Okay. So this is what we're after, right? And this makes another change necessary over here. Remember we talked about capabilities, this right here? I think, I've never done this before. Let's try this. Can we put this in there as well? Because what we're saying is, actually, let's just do it like this. Let's see if that works. So we're saying, basically, we're acknowledging that we are creating IAM resources, and those IAM resources are named. I don't know what will happen here because we have a mix of named and named IAM resources and resources that are being named dynamically, which is the capability IAM requirement for CloudFormation, right? Just letting CloudFormation name them. Let's see what this does. Okay, so let's go like this. And run that. Okay, go back over to this. And this might fail immediately. Let's see what it does. There's our primary IAM. Now, if we go back over here and go to CloudFormation, and I'm in the wrong region, I got to go to Oregon. Now, if we go back to IAM, we've got a change set, and you can see right here, modifying this, and because we're changing the role name, it's going to replace it. So we're going to say execute, yes. I'm hoping what we can do here is by naming the role, we can construct the ARN in the secondary region using like a subcommand or a join command or something like that to get the structure that we need. Let's see if this finishes. I'm not going to deploy the flow log again until we can make sure that we can actually do this. Okay, so there, it's deleting it. Okay, perfect. Now if we go to outputs, this should look no different. But if we go to resources, see this? That's the ID now. So over here, we don't have that. CloudFormation hasn't appended that string of characters to the end of this. So now, what I'm thinking we do, see the ARN right here? This is what we need. So let's go back to PyCharm, and we can then say in flow logs, we're gonna have to change this. Okay, so what we're gonna do is I'm just gonna do this. We'll put this down here for now, and we're gonna say sub, actually paste it there, and we're just gonna go AWS account ID, right, like that. And this will work for both our primary and secondary region now. And that means we can also get rid of IAM stack because we're not actually passing that information in anymore. Which means in here, in the IAM deploy, or sorry, not IAM deploy, the flow log deploy, we can now stop passing this value in because we don't need it. Okay, so we're going to say fixed added ARN for flow logs role. Okay, so push that. Go back over here. And let's see how this thing goes. Okay, there's our flow log deploy. go back here. Go to flow logs, change sets, 1635. That's the new one. That's right now. So if we go here, this really shouldn't look any different. Let's see if it works though. So instead of using the import value intrinsic function, we're now using a different intrinsic function, sub, to construct the ARN that points to our role that we need for flow logs. It didn't fail immediately, but I thought I'd see some change. All right, let's see. Let's push our luck here. We're going to go back over to Oregon. And we will change set. This one, execute. It's got to work, right? What could go wrong? Famous last words. Yeah, it's definitely taking its time here. Usually when this happens, we've done something wrong. It's like timing out. It's a really simple sub function though, so I'm not sure why. And I don't remember the last time we deployed this. Oh, look, it worked over here. Good. So maybe it's just US East 1 here. Maybe it's not refreshing. Oh, it still failed. Property of log group, blah, 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 already exists. Oh, okay. So when we deployed this the first time, remember there's two pieces. There's the log group, and then at that point we then associate the VPC. We say, hey, flow logs, bind yourself to this VPC and send all of the flow log traffic to this log group. When we delete this, watch what will happen. So see this here, log group name, primary log group. So let's delete this. I didn't think of this. We'll give it a second to delete. Okay. And while we're waiting, let's go over to CloudWatch logs. CloudWatch logs. Okay. Oh, I want log groups. Okay, so these are our flow logs. See this one right here? This one's already here, so it's trying to create a new one, and it says that this already exists. So let's just delete these log groups. The one was just a little demo one I had set up. This guy could go away too since we're here. Delete. All right. So if we go here and refresh, it's still delete in progress. Flow logs. Who knew it would be the thing that takes the most effort to get working? Okay, delete complete. That's weird. There we go. Let's try it again. All we have to do in this case is we can just rerun that one stage, this job here. And that should then, okay, create this, change sets, execute. All right, we're gonna leave this, because what I'd like to do is see if we can get the EFS piece done as well. So let's close all these down. And we're going to go to EFS. Now this will be kind of interesting how to set this up. So our backup policy, backup status is enabled. So we don't have to do anything there. That's fine. Performance mode. I think we pulled all of that out. So let's just leave it as the defaults. So there. We are going to encrypt it. We've got a lifecycle policy. That lifecycle policy is after 30 days, transition it from standard storage to infrequent access. The thing that's interesting about this is I wonder if we should then have a lifecycle policy to transition it from infrequent access back to standard storage, but we can do that later. There's our file system policy and our tags. We need our KMS ID here. And I'm going to show you why. Oh, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong thing. Okay, forgot to change the screen. Let's go over here. So EFS now supports cross-region replication. So you can go from a primary file system to a secondary file system. Let's see if we go like this. Right, see here, replication configuration. This will be interesting. We might need a condition statement or something like that for this. I'm gonna have to kind of wrap my head around how to do this. But let's go through all of this and just make sure we've got everything else that we need. Lifecycle policies, performance mode, throughput mode, we pull all those out. So like if we go under performance mode, it says here, general purpose for all file systems, including MaxIO. General purpose is the default. Okay, so we're not going to mess with it. If I was building this out and wanted to give as much flexibility as I can, then I could make a performance mode parameter and put the two allowed value as general purpose and MaxIO, and then set the default to general purpose. But for today, I think it's easy enough to get this working just with the defaults. The only thing that we're going to need to figure out is this replication configuration, the destination. So this might be, we got to figure it out, because what I want to try to do is keep everything in a single template and then just be able to deploy that template in different configurations based on the region maybe where it's deployed. We'll have to figure that, how we want to handle that out. So let's go back over here. And what I was doing is I was just going through this. So I think we've got this in pretty good shape. We need to make a few other changes. So we're going to say depends on here, EFS 0. That's this piece. And then this, we're going to use the import values that we had before. I'm going to go to security group, and we're going to pull a couple things in. Okay, so there's our security group SG stack. And from here, we need EFS ID. So that'll be like that. And then we need the subnets that we want to place this into. So we're just going to copy this again. And in this case, it's going to be VPC stack. And we just need the output, the export names for the two private subnets. So if we go to VPC, scroll right to the end, public subnets. So it's just dash private subnet 0. Okay, so we'll do this. And then I'm just going to copy this whole thing. Get rid of that. And change this to 1 and 1. Because what we're going to do here is we're going to create two mount targets. We're creating a mount target in each of the availability zones that are being used by our VPC. Essentially, what a mount target is an elastic network interface, an ENI. This is how the EC2 instances in those particular AZs will get access to, in this case, the elastic file system. We want to make sure that we have mount targets or ENIs in each of the AZs that we're deploying. So that's why we've got two mount targets set up. Let's try deploy this and see what happens. Go to here, we'll go here. We'll say storage and EFS. That's that part. And then here, I'm only going to deploy this into the primary region for now. So this will be EFS, and it needs both the VPC stack and the SG stack, which I thought I had somewhere. Easier to type, SG stack. And the reason I'm only deploying this into the primary region for now is we got to figure out that replication configuration piece. How does that work? Okay, so yeah, I guess in theory it needs this. We could build this out a little more and do this. In this case, it would be SG deploy. So we'll say storage, EFS, and then we'll say SG stack equals SG stack. Okay, perfect. What do we got here? Oh, we forgot about the KMS ID. Okay, so go back here, go here. So we actually need here KMS stack is primary MR KMS, and we need to include that down here. And again, you know, we could do something like this to help us build out our dependencies in GitLab like that. And then inside EFS, oh, these are all garbage. We don't need any of these. We don't need any of this. And then down here, oh, I put KMS stack here, just didn't apply it, or didn't send anything to it. Okay, let's try it again. Okay. Let's see what happens now. Ah, still validation error. You know what yeah, okay. You know what we did? That's not going to be very helpful, is it? So we need this. KMS stack. And then let's just check. I don't even know what the reference is here, what we export. So we could use -ID should do the trick. So we just do this. Okay. Hopefully that will solve the validation issue. And there's our EFS deploy. Spoke too soon. What did we miss now? Oh, file. We're going to let the file system be named by default. Where is that? Oh, right here. See this? We're passing that in as a name tag. So we're going to do that. Yeah, I generally like to let CloudFormation name this stuff and then use, you know, if you're mixing resources in the same account, use tags and things like that to help you with it. Like help you understand who owns this EFS file system, maybe what application it's used for. Tagging is really helpful for that. Maybe we'll get lucky this time and it'll pass the validation. There we go. I'm almost thinking here, well, actually, while we're waiting, let's have a look at this. This here. This is our replication config. What does it need? Availability zone. Okay, what's this say? Use formatting. So all we're going to need is the ID of the destination file system and the key that we use to encrypt it and the region. So this means in this case, it sounds counterintuitive, but we might actually be better off to deploy the secondary region first, because in the primary region, I need the file system ID info. How are we going to do that? Because it's across regions again. Maybe we won't be able to do that as input values. Maybe we'll actually have to pass that as a parameter value. But we would still deploy the secondary region first. Yeah, we might have to get a little creative with the EFS template. But let's see if we can get the pipeline to run clear here. And at least get the EFS deployed in in our primary region, so we know the stack is good. So EFS and mount targets, that's all it's doing. Oh, security groups expected. Oh, yeah. Down here, see this? Security groups. This should be like that. I'm going to check this before we try deploying it again. So let's have a look at the mount target definition, just to make sure that I'm not messing that up. Mount target. Oh, say there, right there. See this? Security group is a dash because we could have multiple security groups associated with that. That makes sense. So let's delete this. And then we can redeploy that template, and what we'll do is just make sure that EFS comes to life. While we're waiting, let's have a quick look at what we did. So if I go over here and we look at our little cheat sheet, here's what we did today. Let's find a different color we could use for this. So we got IAM resources set up, KMS resources set up, our VPC resources set up, and we're finishing, hopefully here soon, if this deletes. It's still deleting. Hopefully we'll be able to get the EFS done here in the next few minutes. And at that point we'll call it a day. Not a bad session. Let's flip back over here. I don't know why this is taking forever to delete. Okay, there's delete complete. The one mount target's gone by the looks of it. Come on now. There we go. All right, so if we flip back over to PyCharm one last time, right, all we did here was we turned these into arrays rather than strings. Fix, change to SG parameters. And try this again. Go back over here. There we go. Let's try it again. EFS. Now the mount target is what failed last time because of that bad security group reference, and there we go. If I go back over here and go EFS, file systems, here it is. Doesn't have a name because we pulled that tag out, right? Maybe we should name it. But there's our file system. And here on the network are our two mount targets that are still being created. And then this will be the security group that is assigned, which should be if we've done everything correctly here, we'll give it a couple more minutes. If we've done everything correctly, that should be the EFS security group that we created, right? Takes a little while, doesn't it? Oh, there we go. EFSSG, so that's good. There we go, and it's available. So if we go back over here, done. All right, so if we have one last quick look, we go back to our little work items for the day. We got kind of that infrastructure all in place. The thing that we have to figure out is how to set up replication here for this, because we want to go from the primary EFS file system to the secondary one, the one in Oregon. We got to figure out how to do that as part of CloudFormation, because the way we have our templates set right now, it's going to be, I don't know how we would do it exactly. But I think for today, we will call it here. As always, thanks for hanging out with me for a couple hours, and hopefully you learned something as we continue to build out CloudFormation templates. Enjoy the rest of your week, folks. Next week, we'll be back on Tuesday again to continue to work on this project, most likely at the regular time of 7 p.m. Just had some scheduling issues today. So enjoy the rest of your week, and we'll see you next week. Bye for now.